And welcome into the Paul Farrington Show, our Thursday edition of the show. Paul joined alongside Robert Ziggy Ziegler at the University of Virginia, Zach Bloomquist, the best executive producer in the game, who had a tough time setting up all the graphics.
No. Don't tell him tough time. I didn't have a tough time.
You're bitching and moaning.
Do you want to know what this guy Paul did? This guy who's on screen right now. He goes, Zach, I have 30 pictures for you to put in. And I go, how many? And he tells me 30.
It looked good. And we only used about 12 of them or 13 of them because, and it's fine. It's Zach has a tough job as producer. I know that producing is a tough job.
Yeah. No. But it wouldn't be so bad if we did this, like 2 hours in advance. Maybe we got here early and did it. We got here.
Ziggy, was I the reason that we started 2 hours later?
You were not.
What do you mean 2 hours later? We started at 8 o'clock all the time.
I believe it was Zach, right? Am I wrong here? Zach had a long day putting up sheetrock, so it's understandable for him to be irritated.
Zach, if I were in the studio right now after the conversation we just had before the show, I feel like Zach was about to beat me up. So I'm not going to say anything here.
It's probably a good move. If you're still listening, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. We appreciate every single subscription, every single comment that we get. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the start of the NFL season. And we're getting close. We had some fun interaction with Packers fans today with our Jordan Love video that's up. If you haven't seen it, check it out. I'm not particularly happy because people are talking very positively about Jordan Love right now. And not that it's tough because I'm not really rooting against the guy. I don't like to root against people, but I'm rooting against the Packers, which kind of means I'm rooting against Jordan Love. So some Packers fans weren't thrilled with Ziggy and I showing our Viking fandom and saying, yeah, we don't want a third Hall of Famer in 30 years.
My favorite thing is when in the comments, people don't go after us, but they start going after each other. Like There was some guy in the comments who said like Watson and Dobbs will both be better than Garrett Wilson this year.
Yeah, it's just...
And a Jets fan said this is baseless and biased, and they just sort of went at each other for a few comments. Like when the heat comes off of us and it's just pure engagement, that's what you want. Great.
So today we have our fantasy football episode. We had one last year, and actually to give you a little love, Zach, I went back and listened to it to see what we could improve upon. Of everyone on our panel, Zach was really high, and he was the only guy who was super high on Nick Chubb, who wound up being the number 5 running back last season. You said you were also big on Saquon, I believe. So you were huge on Saquon, and a lot of people were down on him going into last year.
You know what they call me, right?
The fantasy guru.
They call me the fantasy guru. They call me Sensei Zach. They call me all this stuff. It's great.
So Zach's
don't they actually call you Sensei Zach?
No, they don't call me Sensei Zach. I get Coach. I get Mr. Zach, and I don't get Sensei Zach.
Mr. Zach.
Yeah.
That's good stuff right there.
Yeah, so if you ever just want to call me Mr. Zach for the rest of the show, I'm so used to it by now.
So how's this episode going to look today? We are going to go through our top 10 running backs, receivers, and quarterbacks. Maybe we'll touch on a tight end or two here or there. Then Zach and I, we have our fantasy draft with our home friends from growing up this weekend. I have picked 10. Zach has picked number 1. We're going to give our problems to Ziggy and see what he has to say. How can we best approach our draft night? You know, maybe we're getting advice from someone we shouldn't, but we're gonna try.
Apparently, he's the fantasy shrink.
Hey,
he's the fantasy shrink. I don't know how he got that name, but
University of Virginia pays me big money to think hard about difficult abstract problems. So this is my specialty, reasoning things out. That's what I do.
So we'll present a couple of our biggest questions to Ziggy, and then we'll wrap up with what Ziggy is saying is a very fun top 10 list for Zach and I to guess. Again, we have no idea what it is, but Ziggy has told us that we will like it a lot. So without further ado, we may as well get into our top 10 list. And this is a list of the show's rankings. So we all ranked individually our top 15, actually. And then we took the collective top 10. So at running back, to start off, we have Travis Etienne with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And we'll see how good of a job Zach does producing this bit here. I have no idea. Ziggy will actually be able to see how Zach does. But Travis Etienne of the Jaguars is coming in at 10. I had him personally at 11. Ziggy, you're also there with me at 11. And I think that there's a lot of potential with Etienne going into this season. We know second year with Doug Peterson, Trevor Lawrence is supposed to take a big leap. Maybe the reception game will improve for Travis as well. A little concern for me would be Tank Bigsby, who has been really impressive in training camp so far. It's potentially stealing some goal line carries from ETN as the season goes on. But what you're looking at here is a guy, 220 carries last season. He went for 1,125 yards. I mean, he is still a receiving threat, even though he's a little uncomfortable catching the ball out of the backfield, which he has said. But you got someone who should be in a high-powered offense. I think you could be looking at a big year for ETN. He comes in at 10.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Jaguars' offensive line last year is one of the worst run-blocking units in the entire league. And still, ETN looked like an explosive playmaker, right? On 25% of the runs last year, Jaguars running backs got tackled in the backfield. But ETN got a lot of success, right? Yards per carry, he was pretty high. Mm-hmm. He was good when he caught the ball, sort of like you saw in his college film, even though the Jaguars didn't do that a lot. I think that Bigsby is going to take some of the short yardage situation. He's going to take some touchdowns away, and that's unfortunate. But like other than Bigsby, you know, they're not giving the ball to like JaMychal Hasty or to Ernest Johnson very much. I think there's a lot of opportunity for ETN to be a huge playmaker. And that kind of explosive playmaking is what you want in a running back, right? You want a guy who can take it. Like those 70, 80-yard explosive runs, those are the things that'll win you your week in fantasy.
I still view him as the biggest playmaker in that Jacksonville Jaguars offense. They do have Ridley now and Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, really talented, but I still see him, ETN, as the best of the bunch there. So we have ETN at 10. We'll go to number 9 on our list, Josh Jacobs and the Raiders. Remember, last season, we're talking about the rushing champ in 2022, 1,653 yards and 12 touchdowns. Currently still in his holdout. We're basically positive that he's going to play this season. But this guy, I mean, really rebounded from. He was always a good running back, but last year was the first year where we saw Josh Jacobs really rise to the level of stardom. Of the top 100 players, I don't know if you saw the list. Like, Zach, did you see the top 100 players of 2023?
Yes.
Josh Jacobs came in at 12. I mean, this guy is respected from his peers. He had a great year. We'll see. I don't expect him to go for 1,650 again, but I think right around that 9 spot is good. Ziggy, what do you have to say?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing to be excited about if you're a Josh Jacobs fan. He got, like nearly 400 touches last year? It was somewhere above 380. And his role isn't going to change at all, right? Like, Zamir White, he'll develop a little bit. You know, you've got Amir Abdullah and Brandon Bolden, but like there's no real competition for him. So even if he regresses a little bit in terms of touches, it's not like other teams where a rusher has a big year and they bring someone in behind to take some of the load off. And you don't need to worry whatsoever about Jacobs playing this year, right? He might hold out or sort of play that game a little bit, but he's going to show up and play. There's no other choice for him if he wants to get free of the Raiders. Has he signed his franchise tag yet?
I don't believe he has.
I'm pretty sure he's still holding out, but that's going to end sooner rather than later. There's really nothing to worry about here. He's going to play, get a lot of targets in the passing game, a lot of carries in the running game.
The one reason I'm slightly concerned with Josh Jacobs is as being someone who had him for a couple of years now. In 2020, 1,000 yards, 12 touchdowns, nice season. I had him last year in 2021, 872 yards and 9 touchdowns. Again, this before the breakout campaign. So he's had very good years, but again, the stardom that we saw in 2022 has only been a one-time occurrence. So I'm still not ready to put him up there in that top 5, even as great as he was last year. We have Josh Jacobs at 9.
I'm putting it out there right now. If he doesn't hold out and he starts, top 5 running back this year.
Top 5 running back?
Top 5 running back.
Look, from the man who called Saquon's return last year.
The only reason why is they have Jimmy G now. Doesn't really ever run the ball, or he doesn't run to set first per se, and he's a big check down guy, right? I mean,
yeah.
And they drafted Michael Mayer, the best inline blocker of any tight end in the draft. We saw what he could do in college.
Oh yeah, no, Mayer's fantastic. That'll bring us to number 8. Someone I'm really excited. I think this guy could be a league winner. Tony Pollard with the Cowboys, entering his age 26 season, his 17.1 ADP right now. Super explosive guy. If you go back and watch him last season, him and Zeke basically split carries, but Pollard still finished as the 7th overall running back in points last year. 21st overall in touches among running backs, but 12th in yardage and 6th in touchdowns. It was just whenever he has the ball in his hands, and we know as Vikings fans, he torched us last season. It wasn't Zeke who was the problem. Tony Pollard brought a new element to that Cowboys offense, and now he's the only guy there. Sure, you have Deuce Vaughn, who's going to come in and potentially he might win the backup job. But right now, it's all about Tony Pollard. And I think this could be a league winner, RB1 potential, Ziggy.
I mean, I think it's more than RB1 potential. If you're drafting him at 8, he's got to be your RB1.
Sorry, no, I'm sorry. I mean RB1
overall. The RB1.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
RB1.
it's certainly within the projections, right? I mean, every single year he gets more touches. He doesn't lose efficiency. He's the most explosive player on that Cowboys offense. I get CeeDee Lamb, of course, excellent player. You're going to be hearing about him later. But Tony Pollard's an incredible running back. Even if the efficiency regresses a little bit, right? Just the increase in opportunities in Dallas should be really good for him, right? They're bringing back Zach Martin. They have a great offensive line. And last year, he was the RB7.
Yeah.
Well, as he said, he was splitting work with Ezekiel Elliott. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons to be high on this guy. On our ranking currently, we think he's going to do even worse than last year. And it's possible, right? The guys above him are all exciting. But this is really where I think the elite tier begins.
Hey, in our ranking, yes. But personally, I have him as the 6th overall running back. You have him sitting at number 9 right now. So that's why he came in at 8.
That's just because I own him in Dynasty. You know, I get a little bit nervous about those guys I own always. But I've been on the Tony Pollard train for 3 years now.
No, he should have a great year. Let's go up now to 7. That's Jonathan Taylor. Ziggy, you have him all the way up at 5. I have JT at 9. Look, for years now, I've always been the kind of guy, if someone falls to me who's having some problems, whether it's injuries or holding out, whatever it may be, contract issues, I love to grab those people and hope it turns out well. And year after year, I've been burned doing that. So I look at Jonathan Taylor, yes, as great a season as he had 2 years ago, the number one last year, the number 1 pick in most drafts. I just don't want to get involved in this. So I have him at 9. We have him collectively at 7 right here, but I probably will not be drafting Jonathan Taylor.
I think there's a lot to be excited about for him, actually. I mean, on the one hand, you worry a little bit that like Anthony Richardson could be taking away some of those rushing yards. You know, the Colts do have a lot of touchdown competition for guys that can get the ball there. But even though his season wasn't great last year, the Colts offensive line was bad and it should get better. He's going to get volume, right? There's no competition for him in Indianapolis. He's going to play there. Like, I can't see them trading him. So you've got a player who's consistently shown he produces at a high level, getting big time volume with a rebounding offensive line. I think he's going to be really good this year, right?
Yeah,
there was a reason that he was the consensus overall number 1 last year.
Yeah, and it was a strange year last year. His touches didn't really change, but his yardage and scoring went down a lot. And that's a little bit because of the offensive line at times. He got injured. But over the final 4 weeks, he was the RB6. So there were signs of improvement towards the end of the year. And yeah, if you nail a Jonathan Taylor pick, let's say you get a receiver early in your draft and come back and JT falls, if you're pairing up Cooper Kupp or Tyreek Hill with Jonathan Taylor and you get RB1 value from him, look out, you're in good shape. So we have Jonathan Taylor at 7. 6, someone a lot of people are really excited about. He's actually being taken as the 3rd running back in most drafts. Bijan Robinson, the rookie out of Texas who's with the Falcons. The Falcons, as we know, ran the ball 559 times last year, the most out of any team in the league. He's going to be the best skill player on that offense. The schedule for Atlanta isn't so bad. The one concern I have with Bijan, and I have him at 7 myself, I don't know how much Cordero Patterson and Tyler Algier are going to get. It shouldn't be enough to impact him from being a top 10 running back. But when people are talking about taking Bijan as a top 5 pick, I'm not confident enough because I've never seen it before. It's a risky pick, in my opinion, even though he should be a top 10 RB.
Oh, he's 3rd on the depth chart. Okay. He really was 3rd on the depth chart. I have no idea why the Falcons did that. Like, he's not going to start there. But look, I mean, here's the thing with Bijan Robinson that you have to think about. He's an elite talent with an elite offensive line. The question, I think, always is competition, right? He's got competition in 2 directions. On the one hand, you've got like Drake London and Kyle Pitts, who are certainly going to get more targets this year than last year. Even though the Falcons should be a rush-first offense, it's tough not to see them using those guys. Now, on the other hand, there are 2 other solid running backs on that team, and Tyler Algier who put up like over 1,000-yard season as a rookie.
Yeah,
and
great.
Cordell Patterson, who people have forgotten about, but he was the RB9 in 2021. He was the RB30 last year, but that was due to injury for the most part. Like, he's good.
Would you take Bijan as the if you could you see yourself falling in love on draft night with Bijan if he's there at 6 or something like that?
See, I feel like if you like Bijan, what you should actually do is not take him and take Jahmyr Gibbs on the turn.
Okay.
Because like you're getting something very similar, right? A highly talented running back, a lot of receiving potential, and an explosive offense. The Lions won't be running as much, but they also have much less competition at running back, right? Like David Montgomery doesn't scare me nearly as much as Tyler Algier. I feel like those players are a lot more similar than people are giving them credit for. Exactly. So I mean, if you like Bijan, you like Bijan, but I'd hit the brakes a little bit.
Are you a Bijan guy, EP?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely, really, absolutely not.
No. Too many people there.
Okay.
Too many people.
Too crowded.
I feel like I don't think he's going to be a 3-down back like right off the bat. If I'm going to be honest,
he probably won't.
And so and at the goal line, I honestly think they'll give it to Cordell or Algier there. Like, I think he has great receiving potential, but like, no way, too much at the goal line. They'll take I don't know how big Bijan really is compared to like Cordell and all that. I don't have their weights up, but I feel like Cordell every time we see him, he's just falling forward like 8 more yards. Yeah, no, it'll be tough for touchdowns, and then you also have big targets like Ziggy said in Drake London and Kyle Pitts. So who knows where the touchdowns will go in Atlanta.
I will say, like Ekeler was the RB1 despite having Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. McCaffrey was the RB2 even in San Francisco. Jacobs was the RB3 despite Devontae Adams. So you can overcome some of that. Mm-hmm. It's the combination of receiving concerns and running back concerns that make me want to pump the brakes a little bit on the Bijan hype train.
And still, we have him as the 6th overall running back. So it's not like we're that down on this guy. Okay, top 5 now. Yeah, top 5. We have Derrick Henry here as the 5th overall running back. Ended last year, RB4, 3rd most points per game for running backs. It's been the 3rd year now out of 4 where Derrick Henry has led the league in carries. We talk about it every single season. When will it finally wear him down? And every year, Henry proves people wrong, unless he gets hurt. But when he's not hurt, he's still putting up very productive seasons. And as I said, in points per game, 3rd most. He's in his age 29 season now. And last year, something to keep an eye on with Derrick Henry. I don't believe it'll be too big of an impact this year, but he set a career high in targets, receptions, and receiving yards. His best receiving season as a pro. The big question surrounding him, like we said, will he wear down? That offensive line is not good in Tennessee. Could that finally be a problem? I'm still pretty high on him. I think he's an unstoppable force.
Yeah, there are only 2 teams that gave more than 85% of their rushing attempts to one running back last year. The Raiders and the Titans.
He's amazing, Derrick Henry.
Yeah, you worry a little bit, I guess, about them bringing in a new offensive coordinator, right? They brought in Tim Kelly, but he was their passing game coordinator before. I doubt he's going to rock the boat on Derrick Henry. I mean, yeah, you're getting a guy who will, without question, get top of the league volume. I don't necessarily mean like number 1, but you don't have to worry about anyone else getting the carries. And he consistently performs. So until I see him getting old, the only concern is injury.
What I hate more than anything in the world is when I draft a running back high and I turn on Red Zone on Sunday and I see on the 5-yard line my RB's not in the game. And Derrick Henry's someone who every single time the Titans have the ball inside the 5-yard line, he's going to get a touch. Whether he's lining up as quarterback, he's behind Tannehill, you're pretty comfortable that he's going to find his way into the end zone. And that's why I'd love to have him. I've never had him on my team. But yeah, the man's just incredible at fantasy football. That'll take us to... do you have a final thought?
Say, what are you going to do? Give the ball to Treylon Burks? Like, no, there's one guy in Tennessee when you're inside.
He got carted off the field today, didn't he?
Burks?
Yeah, I thought Burks I think he got carted off the field today.
Yeah, sheesh. Well, they also have Hopkins there as well. Well, we can...
Yeah, but...
We can... What? Can you see, Ziggy? Did Burks get carted off the field?
Well, I can check.
We were knee deep.
I will say being carted off means he was carted off he was carted off today.
Yeah,
But
what are
being
you guys
carted off,
doing?
as I say,
We're a sports podcast. I was up in the boonies today with no Wi-Fi, and I figured out that he was carted off the
it's
field.
a light LCL sprain. He's only going to miss a couple weeks. He'll probably be back.
I had my head down in those graphics that we're not using. I was doing that.
The one thing I have to say, being carted off means something different in training camp than it does, or like preseason times than it does during a game.
Mm-hmm.
Usually when guys are carted off, it's because it's the fastest way to get them to the training room. It much less often means serious injury compared to the middle of the season. So again, he'll only miss a couple weeks, not a big deal, but you don't have to freak out when you see that most of the time.
Humphrey also got hurt today.
That was much more serious. But
yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about that next week. Number 4 on our list, Nick Chubb, the guy that you were high. I think you were high on him. I'll have to go back. I know you were high on Barkley. You might have even been low on Chubb. I can't remember.
I might have been low on Chubb.
But Nick Chubb last year, 302 carries, 1,525 yards, 239 receiving yards. I mean, yeah, he wasn't really viewed as a top 10 running back heading into last season, maybe borderline, and he just put up great numbers. He 28.5% of the Browns scrimmage yards last year. That's 4th highest in the NFL. And I'm expecting another big year from him, both on the ground and this year actually in the receiving game. He's been lining up in training camp as that third down back. He's competing for that job, if Nick Chubb is really competing for any job in Cleveland. But they're trying him out as the potential third down back as well, that role Kareem Hunt used to take before leaving. So I could see him putting up massive numbers as really the main running back this year with no one else stealing his touches.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Kareem Hunt's gone. People thought D'Ernest Johnson was going to step in and take that role. He's gone too. I mean, the more opportunities have opened up for a guy who already has been an incredibly efficient runner on huge volume. Like Nick Chubb is on a Hall of Fame path. Like that's just true.
That's the big take on Nick Chubb.
Well, no, but you look at his yards per attempt. You look at how efficiently he's run. You look at the numbers he's put up. He is an incredibly efficient and effective running back whenever you get him the ball. Look at his numbers. They are Hall of Fame numbers.
And he's only 27 years old. I think heading into this year, he might be the most underrated guy in fantasy football because he's fallen to the end of the second round in a lot of drafts. And if this was the same exact situation, but we moved to last year before this wide receiver craze, Nick Chubb would be a top 5 pick in fantasy football. That's why I can't understand why most people have him 8 to 12.
You can't tackle Nick Chubb. Think back on the 2 running backs we've seen in the past 10 years who have been the best at sort of not getting tackled. I think of Derrick Henry and Le'Veon Bell for very different reasons, right? But those guys were both incredibly good at avoiding tackles. Nick Chubb averages 1 missed tackle per game more than both of them. Yeah,
I just don't see why he's not being viewed as a top 10 pick across the board.
People are worried that Deshaun Watson is going to step in and make the Browns more passing center. On the one hand, that's true. On the other hand, it means teams aren't going to be able to stack the box against Nick Chubb every single play like they're used to because they're not afraid of Baker Mayfield or whoever else in the backfield. Nothing to worry about. Nick Chubb, I think, is a prime RB1 candidate. Easy pick if he falls to you late in the first round.
And then that'll take us up to 3. We both have Saquon Barkley as the third running back last year. And this is the guy that I am positive Zach was high on. People weren't sure because Saquon's been banged up for a lot of 2 of the past 3 years. Last year happened to be a healthy season. And when Saquon's healthy, he's one of the best running backs in football, hands down. He missed 21 games between 2019 and 2021. So last year, if you look at his numbers, he was 3rd overall in points per game in weeks 1 through 10. A little bit of a drop off the final weeks 11 through 18, 12th overall for running backs in points per game. But I still think now that he's under contract, second year with Brian Dable, offense should be even better now with the additions at receiver. I like Saquon to have another big year if he's able to stay healthy.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And you have to remember the injuries that he suffered were things I think back to that ACL, MCL tear. Those are freak injuries. It's not like a hamstring strain that tends to stick with players for a long time. You worry a little bit about the receiving, right? When he was a rookie, he was incredible in the receiving game, and he's never looked quite the same way since. If he can return to that, he'll be the RB1.
I had him that rookie year. He was so good. And then
Even if he doesn't, he's got an incredibly high floor rushing wise. As long as he doesn't get hurt, he's going to be a top 5 running back.
Yeah, agreed. And then 2 and 1, we both have Ekeler and McCaffrey. I actually have Ekeler, then CMC. You have CMC, then Ekeler. The only reason that I have Ekeler there at that one spot, we were talking before the show, he's a little more durable than McCaffrey. We know how the injury concerns, the injury history behind Christian McCaffrey, even though he was healthy for all of last season. Ekeler hasn't missed too much time over the course of his career, really. And then second, there's a really interesting stat that when Elijah Mitchell plays, he takes away from McCaffrey. So without Mitchell last year, and I'm not going to count the first game against Kansas City that McCaffrey had because he was rushed in. Without Mitchell, 25.52 points per game in 6 games, 23.5 touches. When Mitchell was there, 13 points per game in 4 games on 15 touches. So it's undeniable that Elijah Mitchell cuts into the McCaffrey usage during games, but again, it's not enough for me to put him below 2. Still one of the best, if he's healthy and the lone back, the best player in fantasy football. But I'm going to go Ekeler, then CMC.
Yeah, for me, I think Christian McCaffrey is just the safest bet to be an elite fantasy back this year. I know there are those splits, and you worry a little bit that the 49ers, when they're way ahead, they're fine taking him out, right? Some teams like the Titans, whether they're ahead or not, or the Browns, whether they're ahead or not, their guys getting the ball. The 49ers were a little bit more careful of Christian McCaffrey, but they're bringing back basically the same offensive line. It's the same offensive coordinator, right? That's a big deal. Things are changing in I always want to say San Diego and Los Angeles. I feel for the people of San Diego, but things are changing a little bit. You wonder if the Chargers could change how their offense works a little bit. Both of these guys are elite. There's nothing really to worry about with either of them, barring injury or something incredibly unexpected. These guys should be elite this year.
Yeah, and what do they do? Why are these guys the 1-2? Because they're the best pass-catching running backs in the league. And Saquon, when at times can be very, very good as well. That's what separates those guys. And that's why so many people are so high on Bijan Robinson, is because if he can add, like Zach, you were talking about it, if he can add that receiving game to the Falcons and be, a over 1,000-yard rusher and, 700, 800, 900 yards receiving or something like that. That's asking for a lot, but, Bijan could enter that group. That's why people are so high on him.
Almost everyone plays in a PPR league these days. So it's good to have a running back who can catch the ball 10 times a game.
There. And then just to wrap up the running backs, there are a couple guys who I was thinking about in the mix. Joe Mixon actually was one of those. And the Ramondre Stevenson we like, Aaron Jones, Najee. These are all guys who are right around that top 10 list for us. I want to ask you, before we move to receiver, on Breece Hall. You have him at 13, Ziggy. I'm hesitant to take him just because of the Dalvin Cook situation now, coming back from injury. When he was healthy last year, though, he was the RB6 in points per game. So there's definitely reason to be excited about Breece. I just think there's too much going on to justify taking him too early.
Yeah, there's definitely injury risk. But the thing is you want to hear something crazy?
I love hearing things like
among
crazy.
All running backs last year, Breece Hall had the most air yards.
The first
not air yards per game. Most air yards total.
Wow.
Playing in 6.5 games as a rookie with one of the worst quarterbacks in the history of football.
Listen, if Breece Hall was the lone back in New York this year and he had recovered fully for the start of the season, he's probably going to be in that 7 or 8 spot for me. I think he was that good last year.
For me, the Jets' offense was so bad. He averaged 100 yards from scrimmage on 14 touches a game. Again, with Zach Wilson as his quarterback.
Oh, we had our friend who's a Jets fan doing the show with us at that point. And when Breece got hurt, he said, season's over.
And the season was over. Did you see how quickly it changed? So yeah, there's no question.
Someone to keep an eye on, though. He's someone that once he's healthy, by the end of the season, he could be a huge impact player if you do nab him at some point in the draft. So keep your eyes on Breece. Him and Dalvin are not a bad combination to target, just to see if one of them eventually fully takes over. Okay, let's go over to receiver. I'll read you the top 10 here, and then we'll show the graphic. Between Ziggy and I, we have Amon-Ra St. Brown at 10, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall's counterpart, at 9 with the Jets, 8, Devontae Adams, 7, CeeDee Lamb, 6, A.J. Brown, 5, Stephon Diggs, 4, Tyreek Hill, 3, Cooper Kupp, 2, Jamar Chase, and 1, of course, our boy Justin Jefferson. We'll go through these guys real quick here. Amon-Ra at 10. You had him just outside of your top 10, Ziggy, at 11. I had him at the 10 spot. That was enough to boost him in our collective rankings. I did not see, and you mentioned this before we started, I didn't see the breakout coming to this degree that we saw from Amon-Ra. But with Jared Goff having a little bit of a resurgence in Detroit, I can't help but put him at number 10 on this list.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's going to get targets. You worry a little bit about Jameson Williams coming back. I'm not worried about Sam Laporta or the running game. The only reason I had him at 11 is because I believe Jalen Waddle at 10.
Yeah, and Waddle had a great year.
Yeah, but Amon-Ra, if the Lions offense looks anything like it does last year, he'll get his.
Oh, yeah, 106 receptions, only 6 touchdowns. So he actually has room to improve there. And from week 8 on, he was the wide receiver 6. Like, this is a guy, if you get him and he can improve on last season, someone, again, if you pair with a running back, you're looking at a stud in fantasy. 9, Garrett Wilson. People are so excited for him, especially with Hard Knocks out. You're seeing him go against Sauce Gardner. There's, of course, going to be that natural hype that follows that show. And despite the absolute shit show that happened in New York last year with Mike White, with Zach Wilson, Joe
Flacco for 4 games.
Oh,
who even remembers that Joe Flacco started?
Wilson was still awesome, though. He was 6 in targets, 5th in end zone targets, and only had 4 touchdowns. So the sky's the limit now. Bringing Aaron Rodgers in, I like Wilson to potentially finish as a top 7 receiver. I say his ceiling is top 5. But this guy could be a league winner. Do you agree with that?
He definitely could be. You know, we haven't seen what the Aaron Rodgers Jets offense looks like. And given how bad things looked with Nathaniel Hackett in Denver last year and how bad the Jets offense was, you worry a little bit. But no, I mean, Garrett Wilson's good. He was a great receiver last year with terrible QB play. Aaron Rodgers should elevate that. I'm not worried about the Aaron Rodgers bros coming in and taking too many targets from him. He'll be good.
The Aaron Rodgers bros. I haven't heard that yet.
Oh, but yeah, I mean, the whole gang showed up, right? Like Aaron Rodgers is signed now. Allen Lazard's there. Like all the bros are just coming in to take
You can
targets.
even loop in Nathaniel Hackett as one of the Aaron Rodgers bros. That's pretty funny. Yeah, I see Amon-Ra and Garrett Wilson a little similarly. You probably could get them around the same time, and both of them have sky-high potential. 8, Devontae Adams. So this was one, I originally had him at 6, ahead of both CeeDee Lamb and A.J. Brown. I'm just a little nervous. If you asked me going into my drafts, who are you more confident in to have a good season? I would say CeeDee and A.J. over Devontae, despite Devontae having a great year last year, 1,516 yards, 14 touchdowns. It's just there were a couple weeks, despite being the wide receiver 3 overall, there were a few weeks where he just disappeared, particularly down the stretch in the playoffs, week 14 through 16, 8.6, 4.8, 2.5. And even though he delivered in the championship game with a 30-point performance, for me, it was too late at that time. So I like Devontae a lot. Think it's still top. Think it's still there, even though he's 30 years old. I just am a little more reserved on him than I was a season ago.
Devontae Adams has the worst quarterback situation of anyone in the top 10.
And that's the other thing that is very important to mention. Derek Carr to Jimmy Garoppolo. How much does that change things?
Yeah, I mean, I don't actually think it changes things a lot, but Derek Carr would also be the worst quarterback of anyone in the top 10, assuming Stafford's healthy. You know, the concern isn't Jacoby Myers being signed as the wide receiver too. The concern isn't Devontae Adams getting old. The concern certainly isn't his talent, right? Dude's going to the Hall of Fame, probably first ballot. The concern is Jimmy Garoppolo. I think he'll produce, but you have to factor in the worries about how the offense is going to look, right? It's not like the McDaniels offense lit the league on fire last year either. So Devontae Adams, he's had some injuries in the past. It's not too much to worry about, but the quarterback situation is really concerning to me.
But you can't ignore the one thing with Devontae Adams, and I always go back to this, is that no matter how impressive other guys are, Tyreek Hill blows you away with his speed. Justin Jefferson, 1,800 yards last year. Every time he asks players in the league, list your top 10 receivers, he is always 1 or 2. everyone knows how good Devontae Adams is. He's going to basically command the ball no matter what because he's open. He's one of the best route runners, probably the best route runner in the NFL still, or his releases. And he gets touchdowns, 10-plus touchdowns in 6 of the past 7 years. So for fantasy, that translates quite nicely. He'll win you a few games. Yeah, there will probably be some duds in there just because of the Raiders. But he's still definitely got it. I'm not banking on regression, too much regression in his age 30 season. 7-6, we have CeeDee Lamb and A.J. Brown. I think you can flip them either way, kind of like we did in our rankings. But CD, man, people have been waiting for a breakout. Last year you got it, 1,359 yards, 9 touchdowns. I think that Dallas offense is going to be even better this season, and hopefully you get a better Dak Prescott. So I like Lamb there. Why did you have him above Brown? Was there any particular reason? Or again, we're talking nitpicky details here.
Yeah, for me, it's just, even though the Cowboys added Brandon Cooks, I still think CeeDee Lamb is better comparatively Cooks compared to A.J. Brown to Devontae Smith. I think that in the McCarthy offense, you're going to get even more throwing than you did before. I think Dak's going to improve after coming off the worst season of his career. But, both of these guys are some of the best receivers in the league. They're both incredible against single coverage. CeeDee Lamb was just really, really, really good last year when the Cowboys offense was at the worst it's been in a while. Mm-hmm. I think he's going to have yet another step forward this year.
Yep. Both Brown and Lamb, 28% of the target share for the Eagles and Cowboys. I like Brown a little bit more just because sometimes when I'm watching him and that Eagles offense, look, they're both great offenses. Again, these are nitpicky details, but A.J. Brown at times is just a magnet to the ball and catches everything in his sight. I'm a little more confident in him than Lamb, but again, one spot. 5, we both have Stephon Diggs. He's really been amazing his entire career, but since joining the Bills, he's taken off in fantasy regards. No lower than 5th among all receivers in targets, receptions, receiving yards, and fantasy points in a season since 2020 when he joined Buffalo. We talk about Garrett Wilson. We're saying like a breakout year for him. That would be maybe 1,500 yards. Diggs had 1,429 last year. Career high 11 touchdowns. He should be just fine. And Josh Allen might even be better this year because he's not playing with a partially torn UCL.
No, I mean, the fact that Allen put up those numbers while he was injured were ridiculous.
Insane. Yeah, insane. So we
know somebody on the Bills today, Tyrell Dodson was swinging his helmet around at Josh Allen. So maybe a little bit of injury risk exposed there.
Could you imagine swinging your helmet at Josh Allen at practice? I haven't seen that video yet, but that has to be the stupidest thing I've heard in a while.
If that had connected, he would have been off the team. He is very fortunate that it didn't hit Josh Allen. Imagine you take Allen out for the season with that. You bang up his head. He gets.
Oh my God! Yeah, you can't swing. It's the Miles.
You're out of the NFL.
It's a weapon. Yeah. What an idiot. Jeez. Okay, 4, we have Tyreek Hill, your boy Zach, 2nd among receivers last year. Career high in target shares, receptions, yardage, fantasy points. It's crazy that he went from Mahomes and the Chiefs to the Dolphins and actually improved his numbers fantasy-wise. Tua wasn't even healthy all last year.
What do you mean? Tua's better than Mahomes.
Oh, yeah. Tua, in games without him, Tyreek Hill had no touchdown receptions. So you could be looking at an even more explosive Tyreek Hill from a fantasy standpoint, depending on Tua's health throughout the season. Now, he had some great weeks without Tua, but no touchdowns. Those are numbers that matter there. I like him at 4. You could easily put him at 1, 2, or 3 for me, though.
Yeah, I think that Tyreek Hill might be the safest first-round pick. You know what you're
Jefferson.
Getting with him.
I'm Jefferson. I feel more comfortable with.
He's certainly one of them. I mean, with Tyreek Hill, whoever's at quarterback, it doesn't matter, right? We know that when Tua gets hurt, he produces.
Yeah, no, he's great.
He's incredibly efficient. He can take anything to the house. Fortunately, or maybe unfortunately, Teddy Bridgewater's gone. Mike White's in. But I'm not worried about that
Love
either.
Teddy.
There's a little bit more competition compared to some of these other top receivers for Tyreek Hill, but he is so good, it does not matter.
Zach approves of that. Okay, we'll wrap up here. The top 3, we have in exact order: Kupp, Chase, Jefferson. I almost put Cooper Kupp at 2 on this list. I'm still concerned. And now with the hamstring injury that he's dealing with, it's just when Kupp plays last year, 24.7 points per game, or actually 24.7 points per game over the last 2 seasons, 25.9 2 years ago when he broke all the records, and then last year 24.8. So there wasn't much of a drop off in Cooper Kupp's play. It was just he wound up getting a high ankle sprain in week 10, and that ended his season. If he's healthy, I have no doubt in the world that Cooper Kupp could even be the 1-1 in drafts this year. He's been that good with Stafford, but again, because of the injury concerns, the concerns that are already turning into actual injuries, I'm not ready to put him above Jamar Chase or Jefferson.
And it's not just the injuries to Kupp you have to worry about. It's the injuries to Stafford.
Yes, great
right?
point.
Look, last year, Matthew Stafford seriously, if you believe some reports, seriously considered retirement because of his neck injury. If he falls the wrong way this year, he could be out of the league for good. Joe Burrow and Kirk Cousins. I mean, when was the last time Kirk missed a game due to injury?
Hell yeah, brother. Joe Burrow. Well, look, I don't want to jinx anything.
That's a great jinx.
I don't want to jinx anything, but Kirk Cousins, he's an Iron Man. I can't remember. He hasn't missed one in Minnesota, to my knowledge.
Yeah, so dude plays. Joe Burrow, I mean, he gets injured, but dude plays.
Other than his rookie season, he's been on the field every game as well.
So nothing to worry about with those two. Cooper Kupp, the injury thing is the only thing keeping him down.
Yep. Then at 2, we have Jamar Chase. We might not have even seen the best Jamar Chase yet. You could put this guy in that 1-1 spot as well. 81 catches as a rookie in 17 games, and only 12 last year, 87 catches. Target share goes from 24% to 29%. And you might be concerned about T. Higgins. Listen to these numbers. Target share 18% to 29, Higgins to Chase. And then red zone targets, 12 for Higgins, 26 for Chase. And Chase only played in 12 games again. So we're talking about a pass-happy Bengals team and a Jamar Chase who I don't think we've seen the best yet. So could be an even bigger season for him. He was great when he played.
Exactly. Jamar Chase is chasing after all of Justin Jefferson's early career records. He and Joe Burrow are one of the most fun pairs of players to watch in the NFL.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, now that Mahomes Hill is broken up, I think it's the best thing there is. So those two are just fun to watch together. Jamar Chase, you can just throw on whatever the red zone is, and there'll be him going for some crazy run for the Bengals. Nothing to worry about there. He's going to have a great season.
And then at number 1, I have Justin Jefferson. You have him too. It seems to be the consensus at receiver, but really, you can put Chase, Kupp, Hill. I wouldn't have a problem with any of them in that number 1 spot. Again, as Vikings fans, it's just fun to have your guy there. Jefferson, most fantasy points for wide receivers over the past 2 years, 1,800 yards last season. He's gone up 200 every year of his career so far, which would put him on pace for 2,000. And if he gets 2,000, I think there's some MVP whispers that could come up.
No.
But yeah, no, I think so. I think maybe. 28 red zone targets, 6 red zone touchdowns last year. The guy just gets the ball all the time. Kirk Cousins and him have what we said was the best connection, quarterback to wide receiver in football. And people are saying he got even better. Unbelievably enough, in training camp, everyone's glowing about Justin Jefferson, saying he's added different things to his arsenal. This guy has to be the one for me.
I remember in our Dynasty League a couple years back, you took Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, and Dalvin Cook. And you said, why am I doing this? Well, if I've got these 3 guys, I have every single person the Vikings will ever give the ball to. Well, guess what? Adam Thielen and Dalvin Cook are gone.
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson put up 1,800 yards with both those guys playing. And while neither of them had their most outstanding seasons, they took up a lot of volume in Minnesota last year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Justin Jefferson is primed to explode. As we said, Kirk Cousins doesn't miss games. I looked it up. He missed 1 game in 2009 with a sprained ankle at Michigan State. Otherwise, he has not missed a game in the NFL.
No, he's
or
one
in
of the
college.
Iron Men. Yeah, he's an Iron Man in football right now. And as long as he's there, him and Jefferson, I remember his rookie season, Kirk had an overthrow in the back of the end zone, and Jefferson came down and said, come on, Kirk, like throw me the ball or something like that. And people were talking about how it could be conflict. Jefferson just left him out of the top 5 quarterbacks for him. These guys are money together. They're just great together. So if you draft Jefferson, Zach, I know you're sitting there with the first pick. Yeah, it's not a bad selection at all, having the best receiver in football. So that's receivers for you. A couple guys who were close. Ziggy and I both had Olave and Waddle in our top 12. I think Olave could really break out this season with Derek Carr. You could be looking at a big year from him. And then we both have T. Higgins at 13. Then I have 14, 15, Devontae Smith, DK Metcalf. You have Ridley, Deebo Samuel. Those guys are all, I lump them similarly.
Yeah, the player that I'm most interested in or feel the most unsure about in like that top 15 range is Deebo Samuel. He's coming off a tough year. No question about it. He himself came out and said he played horribly. He barely put up any touchdowns. He wasn't a huge rushing threat. He wasn't a huge threat with the ball after the catch. If he returns to form and can get a bigger target share in San Francisco, he could go back to like that 2021 Deebo. But there's a lot of targets to go around. I don't know what's going to happen with him, but he's a guy who I could see finishing in the top 10, or I could see finishing outside the top 30.
Yeah, if you take Deebo in the 4th round, you have top 10 upside with him. He's just someone that you're going to have to roll the dice on. He says he's vowed to get better this year. And if you get a top 10 Deebo Samuel, yeah, and you're drafting 2 running backs early or running back 1st and 3rd round, that's a way that you can win your league. It's just, I don't know. There's a lot of mouths to feed in San Francisco too. So I like it though. I like Deebo. All right, let's end our rankings here with quarterbacks. We can be a little quicker on these ones, even though a lot of interesting things to break down here. Our list: 10 Dak Prescott, 9 Deshaun Watson, 8 Trevor Lawrence, 7 Justin Fields, 6 Justin Herbert, 5 Lamar Jackson, 4 Joe Burrow, then the big 3 Jalen Hurts, 2 Josh Allen, 1 Patrick Mahomes. I wanted to ask you, we'll talk about Justin Fields and Dak here, the 7 and 10 quarterbacks. You had Fields at 10 and Dak at 9, Ziggy. What was the reasoning behind that? I have Fields at 6.
So Justin Fields certainly is a lot of rushing upside, and people are really excited about that, and fair enough. But you look at the numbers last year between Dak Prescott and Justin Fields. Now, Dak Prescott had one of the worst years of his career. But large parts of Justin Fields' numbers, as much as like 85 points of his 300-ish fantasy points, came from 2 games in weeks 9 and 10. And after those games, on a points per game basis, Dak and Fields, right? Dak having the worst season of his career as a starter, and Fields having his alleged breakout. The difference between those guys was 1.5 points per game.
That's crazy.
It really wasn't huge, right? If Dak cuts back on the interceptions a little bit, if we see the McCarthy passing offense flourish, as it probably will, and if you don't see Fields take a big step forward as a passer, you know, it's nice to have DJ Moore being able to bust a 60-yard touchdown on a screen in the preseason. Mm-hmm. But they need Fields to really improve. If he doesn't, all that rushing upside won't amount to much, and you're not going to see a super strong offense around it.
Okay. Now I can get behind that. I didn't realize how close they were late in the season like that. I like Dak to rebound. I have him as my quarterback 12. I have Fields at 6, though. I don't know how much he really improves as a passer, and you're right. In order for the Bears to make any noise, they need him to elevate his passing game because, frankly, it hasn't been there. And I know Bears fans will get mad and say, no, of course he can throw the ball, but no, it hasn't been there for Justin Fields. And until he does that, the Bears as a contender are non-existent. Fantasy-wise, though, I can't ignore the rushing impact. He had the 2nd greatest rushing season ever last year, 1,143 yards. Between weeks 6 and 15, Ziggy, Justin Fields was on pace for 1,712 rushing yards. I mean, that's a crazy 8-week span that you have right there. But you're right. Until he passes better, you can't elevate him too high on this list. He has potential, though, with DJ Moore now, Darnell Mooney, Claypool, the offensive line's improved. Everything's there for him to take that jump. And if he does, boy, if you could get him in the 5th round, 4th round, you're not using those super high picks like you would for the other quarterbacks. Yeah, that's another way you can win your league.
Dak used to have rushing upside. His first 3 years in the league, he put up like 1,000 yards and 18 touchdowns over 3 years. Mm-hmm. Sadly, not anymore.
Yeah, I was taking a look at comparing Dak and Kirk because I actually have Kirk at 11 and Dak at 12, which people will probably be mad at. But Dak Prescott, 182 rushing yards. Kirk, of course, we know doesn't run at all. He had 97, but that was a closer number than I think most would expect. A 90-yard difference between the two of them there. Okay, next up on our list, we have 9, Deshaun Watson. And I know you're high on him bouncing back this season. Last year, he struggled. He was 22nd in fantasy points per game once he came back. But remember, we always talk about this. For 3 straight years before his suspension, fifth in fantasy quarterback rankings. So if you can get that Deshaun Watson coming back, and he looked good early in the preseason so far, you're flirting with someone who has really high potential.
Yeah, I mean, you can go back and watch our Browns preview show to hear what I think about Deshaun Watson. I really think he's going to take a big step forward this year and return to the old guy.
You have him at 7 on your list. Do you see top 5 potential again for him? You think he could sneak up in there?
There's certainly top 5 potential. Again, I say this over and over again. There are very few quarterbacks in the NFL that have shown they can play at a top 5 level over multiple seasons. Dak's just one of them. Or Deshaun Watson's one of them. Yeah. Dak's also one of them. But Deshaun Watson's one of them.
That'll bring us to 8. We have Trevor Lawrence. A lot of hype around a breakout season for Trevor coming into this season. The final 7 weeks of last year, he was a top 6 quarterback in fantasy football. But then again, he also had 6 finishes outside the top 20. So you got a little bit of Jekyll and Hyde with him. Top 10 in pass attempts, completions, yards, touchdowns, rushing attempts, rushing yards, and rushing touchdowns. He's in his 2nd year now with Doug Peterson. Calvin Ridley enters. This feels like a guy who could be on the verge of a year 3 super breakout and become a superstar in the league. I'm fine waiting on the first 3 guys and going and trying to get a Trevor Lawrence. What about you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, he had 5 rushing touchdowns last year. Basically, every stat a quarterback can have, he improved at.
Yep.
Like, all Trevor Lawrence needs to be good is a functional offense and functional coaching. Well, he's got the functional coaching. And with Calvin Ridley, he's going to have an even more functional offense. I think there's no reason not to have him as a top 8 quarterback this year, and he could do more.
All you had to do was remove Urban Meyer, and you see what Trevor Lawrence is capable of.
When you do not have your coaches physically beating up on injured players, things improve.
And I misspoke there. 7 weeks as a top 6 quarterback for Trevor Lawrence. From week 9 on, he was QB 5 in fantasy. So, again, a lot of potential. We'll see if he lives up to it. At 7, as we said, Justin Fields. We'll skip that, and we'll go to Justin Herbert now as our 6th quarterback. 2 years ago, Herbert was the QB2. So a big fall last year. I have him in our Dynasty League that Ziggy and I play together. He was the QB 11 last year. A little disappointing. But you have to remember, week 2, he broke his ribs. Keenan Allen was out. Mike Williams missed some games as well. Nothing went particularly to plan in Los Angeles last year. I think that we could be looking at a big bounce back if everyone stays healthy in Los Angeles, because Herbert, to me, is a top 5 quarterback in the league and one of the most talented in terms of a pure passing ability. So I like a bounce back from Herbert, and you seem to agree.
Oh, yeah. I mean, with Dak Prescott coming off the worst season of his career, the Chargers said that's the guy to run our offense.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what they did. But I like Kellen Moore, though. He's not bad.
What was needed for Kellen Moore, that was hater Ziggy speaking. Here's more positive Ziggy. Kellen Moore and Dak, that relationship had run completely dry. Both of them needed a change of scenery. Herbert needed a change of scenery too, in the sense of he needed a new offensive coordinator. Things were just not working. I think there's a lot to look forward to here. He's got weapons all around him. He should finally be allowed to throw the ball more than like 10 yards in the air.
Quentin Johnston in the draft, like you said, more weapons, new weapons. And part of the reason for the drop-off was 38 touchdowns 2 years ago, only 25 last year. You had 300 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns 2 years ago, 150, 0 last year. So just, again, I blame part of that on the injury. I blame part of that on not having everyone there for all the games. It's a big if, but you could be looking at another guy with top 5 potential. So I'm fine. We talked about this before. There's Justin Herbert, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence. Those 3 make up probably the tier 2, unless if you want to say that Mahomes, Allen, and Hurts are the tier 1. I think that it's fine to wait for one of those 3 guys and not reach early for a 2nd or 3rd round quarterback. Would you agree with that? Yeah,
if people in your league are overexcited and take quarterbacks in like 13, 14, 15, and there are still elite players available to you dropping, absolutely. Okay. And I do want to emphasize, as he said, Herbert suffered that rib cartilage fracture last year. Yeah. It feels like people don't remember that, but I remember watching that KC.
Oh, it's amazing. Game. Yeah.
He couldn't move.
And
somehow he was throwing the ball like 80 yards and then couldn't walk. Yeah,
no, that game was
played through a tough
crazy.
injury.
Yeah, Justin Herbert, tough dude. I like him there as our QB6. At 5, we have Lamar. You have him at 4. I have him at 5. We had the same top 5 though in general. Look, the rushing ability is always going to be there from a fantasy standpoint. A couple of years ago when he was MVP, or a few years ago now, I believe he set the record for quarterback rushing yards. He's never finished below the QB2 in rushing yards since entering the league. But here's what I want to say. I had Lamar Jackson last year, and he had some big weeks. He started the year off incredibly hot with a 39 and a 42-point performance. If you take those games out, the other 9 games he played, he averaged just 17 points per game. It was a lot of waiting for Lamar to break out again, and he never did it. So I'm not super thrilled with drafting him. I get that they have Odell now. They have Zay Flowers. Todd Monken should come in and speed up the game. I'm a little hesitant to draft Lamar because of what I saw last year from him. But when Rashad Bateman played, he was, in those 3 games, QB8, QB1, QB1. And the rest of the year didn't really have much to throw to. So why do you have him at 4?
Yeah, I mean, like you say, he needed Rashad Bateman to be unlocked. Well, now he's got Rashad Bateman, and he's got Odell Beckham Jr., and he's got Zay Flowers, and he's got Todd Monken bringing in a good offense. We talked about how Herbert and Dak needed a change in offensive coordinator. More than either of them, yeah. Lamar certainly did. Greg Roman is an incredible running game coordinator, but he's just, for the modern NFL, he's just not the guy you want running your offense. The Ravens have brought in Monken. He should bring in a functional passing scheme that'll still utilize Jackson on the ground. I think that Lamar is finally going to get to show what makes him such a great quarterback.
Oh, so you're seeing a big season. Sounds like.
Yes.
Okay. And then at 4, we have Joe Burrow, 4th in fantasy points last year. 9 top 10 weeks for Joe. We know one of the best passers in the league. He actually added on. He's no lower than 8th in quarterback carries, rush touchdowns, and carries inside the 5-yard line. You got a sneaky contribution on the ground from Joe Burrow. And then, of course, you have the weapons that we mentioned, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, even Joe Mixon there. While he doesn't present the rushing threat that really any of the guys in the top 5 present, I mean, Mahomes sort of. But, yeah, Joe Burrow, I'm fine with him at the 4th spot. And do you have anything to add on him, or should we go to top 3?
I would say it tells you how good a passer he is, that he is a competitor. Many people think he's like a top 2 quarterback in the league, despite not offering anything on the ground.
Yeah,
just an incredible player. He's going to produce this year.
Yeah, he'll produce. And then a lot of people are calling them the big 3, Josh Allen, Mahomes, and Jalen Hurts. What order do you have them in, Ziggy, and what was your reasoning for that?
Yeah, so I had them in Hurts, Allen, Mahomes, sort of the same order that comes up here. I mean, look, Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. He's the best passer. He's a strong scrambler. He'll get you touchdowns in the air. He'll get you touchdowns on the ground.
And Ziggy, I'm sorry, you have Mahomes, meaning Mahomes at 1, right? Mahomes
yes.
1, 2, Allen 3, Hurts. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I want to rule out Mahomes belongs at 1. End of story. Don't even question that.
Oh, I question it.
You can't. He's consistently great.
No, he is. He's amazing. Led the league in fantasy points last year. I actually have Josh Allen in the top spot. In any order that you put these guys, I'm fine with. It's just, we talked about the UCL injury last year, but on top of that, the rushing ability of Josh Allen, over 700 yards on the ground last year. I think he'll throw for even more touchdowns and actually reduce the interceptions. You can talk me into any of these guys. I'm just feeling another big year. I think we could be looking at an MVP season from Josh Allen. But yeah, and then Jalen Hurts, just to mention him, most fantasy points per game last year, 25.2. He led all quarterbacks in carries with 165 carries for this guy and 13 rushing touchdowns. I don't think he repeats that number, but once they're inside the 5-yard line, a lot of times he'll get the carry, and I wouldn't be surprised this year if they continue to do that, despite the success he had last season and wanting to protect your quarterback a little bit more, I'm not sure. But yeah, Jalen Hurts was amazing. He won people leagues. He won my dad a league last year because you could get him late.
The only thing I'm concerned about with Jalen Hurts, we've only seen one good season out of him.
Yep.
So of these guys, he is, I think, the biggest possibility to be a bust.
I agree with that for sure.
The Eagles clearly don't expect that to happen. I don't expect it to happen. They're a very good team.
No one expects
Hurts is
it,
great.
and he's been playing great in training camp. All signs point to him having very similar success last year. But I have him at 3, just a little reduction in those rushing touchdowns. But again, you could convince me if you put him 1. So there you have it. For quarterbacks, Dak, Deshaun, Trevor Lawrence, Fields, Herbert, that's your 10 through 6. Lamar, Burrow, Hurts, Allen, Mahomes is our top 5. Ziggy said, can't have anyone except Mahomes at 1. So listen to him. He knows what he's talking about. Because he knows what he's talking about, we will finish up the show with, before the list, the fantasy
I feel like
shrink.
you should just move to the list.
Oh, real quick. I just want to ask him the fantasy shrink.
Okay.
Real quick.
All right, you can ask the shrink.
Just being at 10, because I'd like to hear Ziggy's opinion on this. At the 10 spot right now, Ziggy, I'm assuming that I'll have a choice between Chubb, Barkley. One of them will be gone, but Chubb's, Barkley, Diggs, Derrick Henry, and then a couple other receivers like CeeDee Lamb or A.J. Brown. Now, those guys right there, which way would you lean towards, or who would you lean towards drafting? Because I love being able to double up on running backs, but do you think this Stephon Diggs, A.J. Brown, or CeeDee Lamb upside is enough to warrant the selection there?
So if you're at 10, here's the thing I worry about. Here's why I think you have to take a running back, whether it's Saquon or Bijan or Chubb or even like Jonathan Taylor, is coming back around. There'll be wide receivers available to you, right? Like Garrett Wilson will be available, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Devontae Adams, CeeDee Lamb, like guys you can really count on. The thing I worry about with the running backs, if you don't take one at 10 and there's a run for those next few picks after you, what running backs are left outside of like those top 5 or 6 guys? You're looking at like Tony Pollard breakout, Derrick Henry, Ramondre, Josh Jacobs, like all guys that have questions surrounding them.
Right? Don't you think they could be a 1? If you have Diggs and Derrick Henry, that's not the worst case scenario, right?
They could be, but I think the gap between like Diggs and Devontae Adams or Garrett Wilson is just less than the gap between a guy like Nick Chubb and Tony Pollard. And that's the question you have to ask yourself when you're making these decisions in the drafts. Assuming, like setting aside the preferences of your league mates and all of that, what's going to be the bigger gap in player production?
Okay.
And I think, Chubb, like he's got a real shot at being the running back 1. I don't see it in the same way for even like Tony Pollard or Derrick Henry, even though I think they're great players.
Okay. I will keep that in mind. And for Zach at 1, would you say Jefferson? Zach doesn't really have too many questions, but would you go Jefferson over Ekeler or McCaffrey? I
think that depends entirely on how your league mates draft. Right?
Which seems to be running back heavy, generally.
If you're running back heavy, I actually like going for the McCaffrey or the Ekeler.
If
you're wide receiver heavy, I like going for Justin Jefferson. Just whatever you think is going to be available when your pick comes back around again, more of. Like by ADP, Josh Jacobs is 25. If he's going to be there, take Justin Jefferson. If he's not, if a guy like that's not going to be there,
my guess is no. But we'll see.
Stick with the wide receiver.
All right. So what's this list you have for us? We'll wrap up the show with that.
So the Los Angeles Times has done a ranking on taste of the best burgers at a fast food restaurant. Now they officially ranked 23 burgers, but these lists are top 10. I'm curious if you can guess what 10 fast food restaurants they gave the best burgers to, 1 through 10.
The best burgers. And does this include this? I'm assuming like Five Guys and burger places like that.
Yeah, so there were 23 fast food places. This includes just burger places. So Five Guys, you put them in, they are number 8.
Number 8, Five Guys. I have to imagine that.
It's got to be McDonald's. It's got to be Burger King.
Is McDonald's there?
McDonald's is at number 4.
McDonald's at 4.
Burger King's got to be one of them, right?
I'm not a huge Burger King guy, but you think Burger King?
No, I just feel like it's one of the top.
It is called Burger King, after all. Burger King?
Burger King ranked dead last at 23rd.
I freaking knew it. I never.
Burger King's terrible.
How about Zach? What do you think? Wendy's is probably in there. People like Wendy's a lot.
I was gonna say Wendy's.
All right, Wendy's.
Wendy's is at 12.
Oh,
that's 2 strikes this early on. You guys have got to start getting it together.
How about Shake Shack?
Shake Shack's.
How about Shake Shack?
Shake Shack is number 10. So you just dodged a bullet there.
In-N-Out.
I love Shake Shack.
In-N-Out's got to be on there, right? Everybody
In-N-Out
loves-
is number 5.
In-N-Out, okay.
Everybody loves In-N-Out.
What
And
else?
I'll just encourage you here. Don't just so like these aren't all necessarily national chains, right? So In-N-Out, for instance, is a regional chain. There might be some other regional chains up here that you've heard of.
Some regional chains that we've heard of.
They're not. Some of them are still national, but
I just had one in my head and I lost it.
I'm trying to think of what the best burgers I've had are like I like Boom Burger. I thought that was good. I don't even know if that's a chain.
And it's not. First of all, it's not even here anymore.
Smash Burger, maybe.
But I remember people.
Smash Burger is number 9.
Yes. Let's go. All right, we're Smash Burger
So
regional.
you got
What was the one
1,
that-
2, 3, 6, and 7 left.
What was the one that always rivaled In-N-Out? Like you'd have In-N-Out, or it was the other one. Was it 5
It's like
Guys?
it's not Tommy's.
I don't even know what
I don't even know. what
Tommy's
is.
is gross.
I don't
It's
even know
so
what that
Tommy's
is.
is. So we know these 5.
You know what? One of these you probably don't know. I'm going to give it to you. It's Freddy's, based out of Wichita, Kansas.
Okay, I've
Never-
never. Where's
never heard
that?
of
Where's Freddy's?
Wichita,
It's
Kansas.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, where's it on the
It's
list?
number 3. It's number 3. The rest of these, I guarantee you've all heard of.
Freddy's. Okay. All right, let's do this, Zach. I don't even know if I could think of other.
I think White Castle's on there.
There's no way. White
I know.
Castle.
That'd be so funny.
I would like to. One of our guesses. White Castle is not on it. Can we confirm that?
White Castle is not on it.
Okay, thank God.
White Castle is 17. White Castle doesn't even have burgers.
It does.
They have
Right.
sliders.
That's close enough to a burger.
I'm trying to think of what else. Like what is like. There's always like Arby's, maybe on it.
I don't think Arby's does burgers.
I thought they have the beef.
Well, it's but isn't it like roast
Arby's is
beef?
like a roast beef place.
Yeah.
I guess. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my god.
What other places have burgers? Sonic.
Sonic. Sonic's definitely.
I don't think they're top 10 though. Bobby's Burger Palace. Not on the
Checkers.
list. Checkers. I don't even think I can guess anymore.
All right, we got to get a guess here.
All right. I'm going to guess.
Did we say what other fast foods are there? Oh my god.
Let's go with Sonic.
Sonic. Let's go with Sonic.
Sonic is not up there.
What's
no.
what's 1, 2, 6, 7?
So Sonic was number 20. Number 7 was Culver's.
Oh,
I've never heard of Culver's.
I should have got that.
Yeah.
Culver's is delicious.
I've never had.
Number 6, Whataburger.
Whataburger.
That's the other
That
one.
was the one that always rivals In-N-Out.
Number 2, this surprised me quite a bit. Carl's Jr.
Never heard of
Oh, yeah, I've seen the commercials, but no,
It looks
never.
like it was up here just for the double Western bacon cheeseburger.
Interesting. And then what's 1?
Number 1, Fat Burger.
it. Never heard of
Fat
it.
Burger. I've never heard it. Where is that?
Maybe it's just a California thing. Let me check where Fat Burger is.
Well, we should have for sure. I should have gotten Culver's because.
Oh no, they're around. But yeah, Culver's. I thought you were gonna go there, Paul. I really
No,
did.
no, I should. Well, I was trying to think of some from the Midwest, and I was thinking like Portillo's, I know, and then Raising Cane's, but I couldn't come back to Culver's for some reason.
The
It's
Culver's
good
Butter
stuff.
Burger
Oh, they're amazing.
is
Yeah.
so gross.
Oh, I think they're great. They're great.
No, those are consistent, Paul. Those are. It can be gross and like it's cooked in butter and then it's put on a buttered bun.
Oh yeah, that sounds like health.
Oh, it's good. It's good.
That
Oh, and then you
sounds
get a
like
side of cheese curds.
even more healthy.
All right, before you get us too hungry over here, we'll wrap up with that. Thanks again for listening to this episode of the Paul Farrington Show. Next week, we'll be back with some preseason week 2 stuff. The preseason continues. We're counting down to the days of NFL regular season football. And good luck in your fantasy drafts, too. Hopefully this helped you. Let us know where you're picking. We'll leave comments about the best scenarios, the best strategies that you can take as your drafts approach. Until then, we'll see you next time. Please like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for listening. Peace.